Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Driving the Wheels Off. Today, we're going to be testing 3 methods of removing rust on my new dump trailer. The first one is going to be this rust cutter. The second one will be a 36 grit flap wheel. And the last way will be a new sandblaster that I just got. So let's get started. First things first, a little prep work. We need to clear away any loose debris, dirt, or flaking rust to give our treatments the best chance to work. Think of it like clearing the canvas before you paint. Now for the crucial part, setting up our test areas. We're going to create a 4-section grid in 2 different locations to really show the range of these rust removers. This first area, here in the bed of the trailer, has some pretty aggressive pitting rust. This is the kind of rust that's been eating away at the metal for a while, creating those deep, uneven surfaces. This will be a real challenge for our methods. Our second test area will be on the tailgate. This is mostly surface rust. It's more of a superficial stain rather than deep corrosion, which is a much more common scenario for many DIYers. With our grids prepped, it's time to assign our rust removal methods to each section. This is where we'll really see which approach is best for different rust challenges. For the first section, we're bringing in the heavy hitter, a 36 grit flap wheel. This is a mechanical method designed to aggressively abrade and literally grind away the rust. We'll see how it handles this deep pitting. Next up, we have a chemical approach with a product simply called Rust Kutter. This is a liquid solution designed to convert or dissolve the rust, hopefully leaving a more stable surface behind. We'll follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully for this one. And for our third standalone method, we're going to use the sandblaster. This uses abrasive media propelled at high speed to strip away the rust down to bare metal. It's often considered one of the most effective but also messiest methods. We'll see if it lives up to its reputation. Finally, for our last section, we're going to try something a little different. We're going to use all 3 methods, the flap wheel, the rust cutter, and the sandblaster sequentially. The idea here is to see if combining these approaches offers a synergistic effect, perhaps speeding up the process or achieving a superior finish compared to a single method. This will be an interesting experiment. Now let's move over to our tailgate, where we have that surface rust. We'll apply the exact same methods to these sections to see how they perform on a less severe corrosion. Again, the 36 grit flap wheel here. Will this aggressive method be overkill for simple surface rust, or will it be the quickest way to get a clean finish? Our rust cutter liquid will go into this section. This might be where a chemical solution really shines, as it can often work without excessive abrasion. The sandblaster for this section. On surface rust, this could be incredibly fast, but we'll need to watch for any potential warping or excessive removal of material. And just like on the trailer bed, our final section on the tailgate will be a combination of all 3, flap wheel, rust cutter, and sandblaster. This will be the ultimate test to see if combination methods is beneficial across different levels of rust severity. Now that we're done with all of the applications that we were going to try, this is the result. So this is number 1, this is grinded. This is number 2, this is the rust cutter. And this is number 3, this is sandblasted. Number 4 is all 3. So depending on what application you're going to be using these methods, I'll be honest, each one of them has their good and their bad. So with the grinder, obviously that one is going to get basically everything off. They did a really good paint job on this trailer. I could not believe that there was any blue left after we did the grinding, the flap wheel. The problem with the grinder was that if you have any pitting, the grinder will not get down into the pits. So you can see that I've still got the rust down into the pits. Now this one over here, the rust cutter, this one did much better than I thought it was going to do. Obviously it didn't take off any of the paint, but as you can see, it took off as much as this side did, even with the grinder.
And as you can tell, inside of the pits, you don't have that same rust as you did with the grind. Now with the sandblaster, this one, I have to say, I do like how it came out. The problem with the sandblaster is that the sand itself is very expensive. So the 50-pound bag was $50, and that's from Harbor Freight. I can only imagine if I was trying to buy the sand from, you know, one of the other stores, it's probably, you know, $100 for 50 pounds. I haven't checked on any of that yet, so don't quote me, but I can imagine that that's what's going to be the price. Now, it did a great job. It did get down into the pits, so it's not as rusty as the grind, but it is not as clean as the rust cutter. So it did a very good job for what I was, you know, trying for. But with the sandblaster, because of how expensive it would be to do this whole trailer, I would never do it that way. I would use the sandblaster for very small jobs, and I'm planning on getting one of the, I don't know what they're called, but it's the sandblasting box that has the clear vision in the top so that you can, you know, do small parts and things like that. I think with this sandblaster from Harbor Freight, I think that is going to be the best use of that particular tool. Now let's go down to number 4, which is this square right here. And what I did here is we grinded it first, then we did sandblast, and then we did the rust cutter. I don't know why this particular area, it has this like white film. I did come back in after I used the rust cutter and it dried. I came in and I did a pressure wash so that we could see, you know, each one of these areas very, very well. And I did this section and this section at the same time with the rust cutter. So I don't know why it has that white film, but this is actually pretty good. Again, this would be the most expensive way to go because I did all 3 applications here. Because during this test, my father-in-law and we actually did the undercarriage of the trailer. And in the very hard to reach areas, obviously we used the rust cutter. It was a game changer. Like trying to get your hand into some of these places was absolutely impossible. With the rust cutter, I put it into a spray bottle and I just sprayed it into those areas that I couldn't get my hands. It completely wiped out the rust in those areas. So for the rust cutter, that is the biggest selling point for that, in my opinion. We did not use the sandblaster anywhere else on this trailer other than here, there, and the 2 spots on the tailgate, which I'll show you in just a minute. If you want to see that video of this trailer being completely done, it'll be the next video that pops up, and I'll have a link at the end of this video. Also, if you are looking for any of the tools or the rust cutter or anything, I'll put a link in the description below. Let's run over and see how these 3 methods did on the tailgate. So here's the tailgate. Again, we did all 3 methods, and then at the end we did all 3 of them in one spot. This one here is sandblasted. This section here is the rust cutter. That one is grinded. And of course, the last one there is all 3. The reason I did it on 2 different sections is because this one didn't have all the pitting that the actual bed of the trailer had. So I wanted to see what it would do with just like scrape or surface rust, which I believe is probably what a lot of you will be trying to remove. So with the sandblaster, again, it did a fairly good job. Again, for such a big application, I would never use the sandblaster for this again. With the rust cutter, now that one, again, in this area here, it did a fantastic job with the rust. It doesn't do anything with the paint, which in some applications is going to be fine, especially with this one, because I'm not trying to make this trailer brand new. I am just trying to make it better and make it to where it's not going to rust again, or at least not rust again for a while, right? And then the last one, in this area, because everything was flat, there wasn't as much pitting, the flap wheel did a much better job. So for anything that just has some surface rust and you're wanting to get rid of some of the paint, the flap wheel is probably going to be your best bet. I can tell you that it is a dirty job. You're going to want to have a face mask. You're going to want to have, you know, all your PPE, your glasses and gloves and things. As far as the result, your flap wheel is probably going to be best with any of this surfaced rust and paint. With all three of them, it had that white residue. Now, the only thing I can think of is on the rust cutter, it does say that you don't have to grind or sandblast or any of that before you use it. So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it, because the section that we did just the rust cutter, it doesn't have all that residue. Whereas the one that we had used the flap wheel first and then used the sandblaster and then put on the rust cutter, that's where that film comes in. But again, most of you are not going to do all three of those because that is just a very expensive way to go. And really it's unnecessary, because you could choose, depending on your application, you could choose one of these three methods and it would be perfect, you know, for one of those applications. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.